whether you coach, consult, or run training programs, you might have felt the shift, right? Budgets are shrinking, but expectations are climbing. Clients and companies, they want proof that the work that we do actually creates change that moves the needle, not just a great day in a training room or on Zoom. And the pressure to do more with less is now the baseline, not the exception. So we're going to look today how to meet those demands and do it in a way that doesn't exhaust you or dilute what makes your work meaningful. So, we have to answer the question, how do you deliver deeper value, but without burning out, without having to create so much content, without having to, go and create all these job aids or PDFs or find videos or create all this other extra content. And clients aren't satisfied, right, with just check the box training anymore. They expect real individualized insight, something that speaks directly to each person's day-to-day reality. But even a brilliant workshop or coaching session can fade quickly if there's no follow-up. So behavior change happens in the daily grind, not just the training room. And yes, Ernie said workshops don't work, right? So workshops are great. They just don't necessarily cause change. They're usually a catalyst to something else. They don't cause lasting change all the time, right? So behavior change happens not in that room. It happens what they do with it, right? So the bar has moved. People want evidence that people are actually changing their behavior, not just, they don't want death by PowerPoint, right? Ernie says, bam, lasting change is built one day at a time, right? They want that, and that's what's going to keep you in the budget, right, next year and keep your clients coming back. They want to see that they're applying what you've taught them. So there has to be some follow-up to whatever's happening in that room, right? So yeah, so AI plays a role, right? We're probably sick of hearing about like every article is about AI. So let's talk about what that actually means. So what does automation mean? Smart automation, right? So we'll talk about this. We're not talking about like AI in this vacuum. We're talking about, well, what can be automated, right? How do you deliver that reinforcement without tripling your hours? And this is where smart automation really changes the game. You can automate the repetitive pieces like reminders, nudges, micro tips, the things that people often forget. And well-designed automation delivers the right insight at the right moment inside the tools that people use daily. So if you're doing a training, if you're doing a coaching session, how can you keep that all top of mind? But automation has to serve your human expertise, not try to replace it, right? It's got to be in the flow of their work and not buried in a slide deck. But people don't build trust with bots, right? They build it with you. They trust you as the practitioner. So done well, technology buys back your time to focus on where human connection matters most, right? Technology is never going to replace trust and connection. It's just not going to do that no matter what anybody tells you, right? It's not going to do that no matter what it tells you about this generation or that generation and what they need. So we have to keep some of it human, right? That's the heart of today's message. No matter how good or fast AI gets, it cannot do what you do best. It can't read a room's tension. It can't help a leader process tough feedback moments or sense the unspoken undercurrent on a team. That is your skill. Your skill is trust, empathy, conflict resolution, real-time judgment. So the winning approach isn't choosing humans or AI, it's combining both. So you want to use automation for scale and consistency. Use your human touch for depth and transformation, and then use the AI, use the automation for follow-up and embedding. So great practitioners pair it, right? It's not either or. We're not in an either or conversation, and we're not here to replace the practitioner. So Cloverleaf and automated coaching is not here to replace coaching, training, or consulting. We don't suggest that. What I always like to say is that when I discovered Cloverleaf, it provided this extra cylinder to my practice to help me move faster. So we use assessment data like from Enneagram, DISC, MBTI, and other assessments to deliver micro coaching tips inside tools people already use, like email, calendar, Slack, Microsoft Teams. And it keeps my expertise present between my training sessions, my coaching sessions, without extra manual work. So before I bring my panelists on to share exactly how they're using it in their practice, I know in our last webinar, some people shared, well, I don't really know what this is. So I'm just going to do a really brief, if you want to find out more about Cloverleaf, you can, and we'll share with you how to do that. I'm just going to show you the tool super briefly for a few seconds, a few minutes, just so you can understand what I'm talking about. So for example, when practitioners have a Cloverleaf account, they have their own Cloverleaf account, and they give their clients access to their Cloverleaf account. So I have a Cloverleaf account. You do not pay for assessments the way you would pay for DISC. So for example, before I discovered Cloverleaf, you charge per person for DISC. That's not the way it works, right? So I give access to my clients, and they go and I can give them access to as many assessments as I want. I can embed that cost into my training cost or my coaching cost. I don't line item anything, right? I say, hey, you get access to my Cloverleaf platform, right? It's included in my services. And so each person will take a series of assessments. You do not have to make them take all of these assessments. So right now on the screen, you're seeing Enneagram, you're seeing MBTI, which is 16 types on our platform. You're seeing DISC, right? We have a strengths assessment called VIA Strengths, right? We have other assessments as well. I'm just showing you a few to not overwhelm you as well. Okay. And they take these assessments, but here's the magic of it. What happens is they get delivered in their email each day. They get delivered a little coaching tip. Okay. So they also get to tell the system, hey, I want to get developed in a certain way. So each of your clients, whether they're in a training program, whether they're in a coaching program, whether you're doing executive coaching or team coaching, each person gets to say, hey, Cloverleaf, I want you to develop me in a certain area. Right now, my team is experiencing high friction. So I need to be developed in an area called managing conflict. That's where I need the most help. So please, Cloverleaf, send me digestible tips that are going to help me manage conflict. Okay. And so what Cloverleaf does is all those assessments that you've taken, there's little coaching tips that are written by our contextual coaching team, and they actually are sent to you in digestible bites. So when you take your DISC assessment, you don't walk around with your DISC report all day long, and you certainly don't walk around with everybody else's DISC report all day long. So you get delivered to your email, or if you log into Cloverleaf, you get a little coaching tip. And it says, hey, you know what? You may be sensitive to inconsiderate actions towards others. Call out this behavior when you see it to champion for those on the receiving end and give the opportunity for the misstep to be corrected. Your advocacy demonstrates leadership and can prevent relationships from being damaged. So now it's giving you a little coaching question. So this is actually a developmental tip here, and it's giving you courage to actually leverage one of your strengths. And it says, reflect on a time you witnessed inconsiderate behavior. How could you have advocated for change? Well, I could have spoken up in a meeting when someone cut off Sue's idea. I will speak to Sue the next time we have a one-on-one. Right? And now this is my private coaching journal. Nobody sees this. Now I get a tip. Oh, it tells me it's on my coaching focus. I get a tip about Casey, my team member. Casey operates with empathy, which can make addressing conflict more challenging. Recognize that conflict that can be overwhelming as Casey learns to navigate civil discourse with confidence. How can you create a safe space for Casey to express their views during conflicts? Maybe Casey's my team member, and I can say, I can support Casey before we go into our next project meeting. Now, maybe I have a meeting with Casey tomorrow, and that's gonna remind me to talk about that with her. So now what's now been buried in my assessment reports that I probably will never look at again after that debrief is now something that I can actually go look at for myself in my little private coaching journal. And these are things that I can look at again. If I have to have a difficult conversation with someone, I can ask Cloverleaf, how can I give feedback? to Noor, right? And now this is actually using AI in a super smart way. It's searching all the different coaching tips that I have in the system about Noor, and it's using AI. So let's say I'm a trainer and I just gave a training module about giving feedback, and I taught skill about feedback. This is giving me a little AI summary about how to give feedback to Noor. Now I can go through all these tips, but this AI feature is summarizing these tips. Now, I did a module on training around feedback. Maybe I assigned everybody to read Radical Candor, or I taught the STAR feedback model. I taught skill, I taught strategy, but now I give everybody access to this and they can actually learn about how to give feedback to their specific team members. Okay. So again, people take their assessments, but people get access to all of these features when they log into Cloverleaf. And they can integrate their calendar so they can get tips about people when they're meeting with them. They can also use these features so they can search. They can also get these little coaching tips. What I just showed you, this gets delivered to their email directly. So even if they don't log in, they can actually see this in their email, right? So this is just a little bit to show you about how Cloverleaf works. And this is the smart automation. This is the AI piece that I'm talking about. We're not replacing your training. Maybe I just had a coaching conversation with Noor about giving feedback, and now Noor is using the session's over 2 days later, right? Someone has to give feedback to Noor. They're just using the platform to support the coaching session I've had with them. Okay, they're not replacing my coaching session. They're not replacing my training module. They're using this tool as an assist, as an extra cylinder. Okay, so I am super excited to bring on 2 practitioners that are currently using Cloverleaf in their practice. So Erin Lego is an associate certified coach with the International Coach Federation and a certified Enneagram coach who's passionate about helping leaders with teams connect, communicate, and grow. Through her coaching practice, Erin Lego Coaching and Consulting, she brings over a decade of hands-on experience in leadership development using tools like the Enneagram and automated coaching to deepen self-awareness and resilience within teams. Welcome, Erin.
Great to be here.
Great. And Kurt Wuerfele transforms hospice and home health organizations from the inside out, partnering with leaders across North America and Europe to navigate the complex intersection of compassion, end-of-life care, and operational excellence. As founder of LifePath Coaching and co-leader of the Flourishing Leaders Hospice Transformation Program, he tackles the industry's most pressing challenges, from leadership transitions and staff retention to aligning mission-driven values with sustainable business practices. His work empowers hospice executives to build resilient organizations that don't just survive in today's challenging healthcare landscape, but create lasting legacies of exceptional care for patients, families, and entire communities. Welcome, Kurt.
Hello, glad to be here.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can all be here together. So I'm going to ask some great questions to all of you. So I just want to address one question in the chat. So Tim, you cannot load your own assessments, but I can share with you after this, I can share with you some additional assessments that we do have. We have more than those that we share. We have many more, but you can't load your own. So Kurt, let's start with the shift. I'm going to ask you a question. And by the way, if you have questions, pop them in the chat. If you have questions for any of our practitioners or for me, pop them in the chat. So Kurt, let's start with the shift. How has the rise of AI and automation changed the expectations of your clients, bringing to coaching engagements today? Are senior leaders looking for different value now than they were, let's say, 5 years ago?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Now, for me personally, here's what I've seen. I'm not really seeing my clients bring in like expectations with AI for myself and our engagement in our programs. But what I do think I'm seeing is like what their expectations are in regards to what they think AI can do for them in regards to, meaningful insights into their leadership challenges, right? So what I'm finding is I'm typically having to help them unlearn what they've taken in from AI. So a quick example, I'm working with a brand new executive director out in Singapore, and she was using Chat GTP to self-coach, right? But a lot of the answers she was getting, some of them were okay and in the ballpark, but other ones that were really starting to reinforce these negative beliefs that were already holding her back. And I'm also seeing a little bit of like a program she was a part of where they were incorporating AI into this coaching assessment they were doing. And sadly, I think a lot of the insights she was getting were giving recommendations on success based on her personality traits, but that were geared towards what her corporation wanted out of her. They were not, like Cloverleaf. I love the team roles tool, right? It wasn't, it was telling her to focus on her least preferred roles, the things that were going to take so much more energy for her to do that she didn't really want to, and not on those preferred roles that she really shined in. So that's kind of what I'm seeing a little bit of.
Yeah, I just want to just visually share what you were just talking about, just so that people can understand. So in our team dashboard, so I just showed the individual dashboard. We also have a team dashboard where if you're working with a team, you can see all of their results in an assessment. So the roles grid actually integrates data from multiple assessments. And so it will actually tell you, so like this is almost like a gas tank. So it will tell you when someone has like a full gas tank, but they have 3 dots, it'll tell you, hey, this person thrives in this role. So this, by the way, is based on the research of Dr. Meredith Belbin, who looked at what are the roles on a team if they're all filled makes a team super like effective and successful. So for example, this role of innovator, creative idea generators, like who are your people that are bringing those original ideas? So on this team, these folks are really going to thrive in this role. But this person has like 1 dot, which means like this could cause burnout. If Noor is put in this role, this causes burnout. So it's kind of like you were saying, like on Cloverleaf, it kind of shows you like who's suited to serve in this role. If someone has 2 dots, hey, like they could step in, but like long term, it's probably not the best idea, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
but good thing to bring that up. That's great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, anything else you wanted to share there, Kurt?
I mean, no, I mean, I think again, Cloverleaf really helps me out with that. I've been using it to kind of help them unlearn from some of these, tactics they were using where they were like trying to focus on things that really were not their strength, or again, reinforcing these negative beliefs because it's a bot. It's like you were saying before, there's only so much it can do, and it can kind of lead you astray. It's not going to be able to take in someone's personal energy and everything you were talking about. So,
Great. So thank you so much. Erin,
mhm.
I'm gonna turn to you as an Enneagram practitioner. How do you keep insights from assessments like the Enneagram alive and actionable, like after an initial workshop? And how does Cloverleaf help you extend that value into the day-to-day work of your client teams?
Yeah. So Ernie made the comment earlier about how workshops don't work, and I offer an Enneagram workshop, and I think there is the reality that I recognize like people are going to walk out of the room and not remember like right away 50% of what I've talked about. And so I think the value I've really seen in using and partnering with Cloverleaf is that right away, there's going to be the micro coaching tips that land in their inbox as a follow-up to what we're talking about. It's going to reinforce what they've learned, and they're going to continue to learn from what they've experienced in the workshop, and it's just going to help it come to life. And oh, those aha moments that they had in the workshop are going to continue to land. And oh, I see it. And I hear this from my clients. And as we have follow-up sessions, they're like, oh yeah, that thing you talked about showed up in my inbox.
Mm.
And I get it. I see it in a new way. And so I think that that's one of the immediate things that comes to mind in terms of the value. It just like right away in terms of the value piece.
No, it's so true. And I think, part of the way we can make workshops more effective is through automated coaching. And I think Cloverleaf
Mhm.
has really cornered the
Mhm.
market in terms of making it come alive,
Yeah.
because the things that would have gotten locked in that report have become so much more, palpable and usable, right? Through the daily coaching, through it, like you said, landing in my inbox. And oh, now it makes more sense. Like now I can take action on this, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Great. So for both of you, and Kurt, why don't we start with you? What's something you used to deliver manually in your coaching practice that you've now automated or offloaded to Cloverleaf? And how did you make that shift without losing human connection that clients value?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this just as a foundational thing, I'm an IPEC certified coach. So we use the ELI Energy Leadership Index's attitudinal assessment. That's where I start as the foundation of all of my coaching interactions. And basically what it does is it shows how their perspective and their energy levels, show up in the world, right? And after we have that assessment, we go through a debrief coaching session to review their findings. So what I used to do was after everyone in the team had their ELI, I would go ahead and do a group training with them, right, to show how their personal ELI results were affecting their team interactions. But once I got Cloverleaf, I replaced all of that, right? So because what I found was that the Cloverleaf reinforces all of their ELI attitudinal findings, but it creates this powerful link like between their personal perspectives, their energy levels, their strengths, and their limiting beliefs, and it shows how they manifest, right, in their teams in real time. And so now instead of that group ELI session, I'm doing a Cloverleaf SWOT, which Cloverleaf and you, Stephanie, are like amazing at showing you how to have an effective SWOT analysis with Cloverleaf. And that's going to follow all those individual ELI sessions. So I let Cloverleaf make those team connections and insights. And once they see that, right, again, kind of like we were talking about before, they're getting their daily coaching, right? And it's very, very powerful. So it didn't lose any human connection, but just enhanced it and made it a lot more effective and fun too.
Right. So the team piece really, and I think that I like to say like Cloverleaf like develops like what I call three-dimensional coaching. Like in the past where like I used to coach an individual. Oh, you have a fellow IPEC Brad in the chat, Kurt.
Oh, let me pull this up.
So,
Go IPAC, yeah.
so welcome, Brittany. So in the past, I used to, like, if you coach a leader, you don't get to see they'll talk about their team members and you don't know their team members. You don't know anything about them. Now, when I coach a leader, I put their team on Cloverleaf and I can now see so much of the dynamics because I call it like three-dimensional coaching. Like previously I had just insight into the leader. Now, if I have insight into the whole team, I'll say, okay, let's bring up like, and this is the other thing I do want to say is super valuable is and I love actually the Enneagram comparison here. I'm going to bring up the screen just one more time. On the team dashboard, like whenever I'm experiencing conflict with a team member, like I was coaching a manager once and she was kind of going on and on. I bring up the Enneagram comparison, and the Enneagram comparison pulls up two people and their Enneagram results. And you can see the different source of conflict, the reaction to conflict, and how the two people can resolve conflict. So she was kind of going on and on about a situation that had happened with somebody. And I said, okay, I get that. And we could have like talked about the drama and the details of the situation, but I said, let's look at your Enneagram type side by side. What do you think's really happening here? And all of a sudden we got a lot more solution focused. And to me, I would have it might have taken like 2 sessions to like get to that, but Cloverleaf really accelerated that. And that to me is what I call like three-dimensional coaching. It really was such a richer conversation because we got to a more strategic conversation. So she could see what was the underlying piece that was creating the friction rather than what was the situation that happened, right? Not that I didn't want to hear it or not that, I wasn't trying to cut her off. It was just wasn't super useful to go down the road about those details. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Erin, how about you? What's something you used to deliver manually that you now automate or offload to Cloverleaf, and how did you make it?
Yeah, so when I first came to Cloverleaf, I was doing all of my Enneagram work in individual conversations. So it was very time intensive and really not scalable to like work with a team because it took me like 2 hours to go through each person's like Enneagram kind of process. And so I got introduced to Cloverleaf as a way to potentially kind of scale my work with teams. And I'll be honest, I was really resistant because I was like, I don't want to use an assessment. I don't know if this will work. But as I got introduced to it, I was like, I am bought in and really loved the assessment, particularly for the Enneagram that Cloverleaf had to offer. And now I can't imagine going back to what I used to do because
Mhm.
it wouldn't work with the way that I'm able to use it and the way that I am able to work with teams in this capacity. So,
Awesome. So I hear a lot of saving a lot of time.
yes, very much so. And
Excellent.
just working with teams,
Right.
which I think is really like when we look at the description of just being able to increase our time to be able to do work without like working all the time, right? I think it's being able to kind of scale how we do things is important for us as coaches.
Excellent.
Mhm.
That's great. All right, we have two questions in the chat I want to address. Kurt, one is for you from Travis. What one to two assessments do you focus on the most? I'm considering assessment certifications
Mhm.
grow impact.
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, especially when I'm doing a Cloverleaf SWOT, because, and we'll get to this later on, when I do one at the beginning of an engagement with a team, I focus a lot on the disc and the Enneagram because they're very tangible, they're easy, quick to figure out. And then again, I love the way that they integrate into the thinking styles comparison tool that Cloverleaf gives you, that you can select which assessment you want its perspective on in regards to how these people are getting along or not getting along, right? So those are the two that those are my favorites, and then followed by 16 types and
Great. Awesome.
thereabouts. Yeah.
And we have Kalia here. Kalia Jones, one of our friends, Kurt, is here. So
Hey, Kalia!
Kalia is here. She's asking a really great question. How often do you recommend clients retake the assessments? And how do you support them moving from insight to action? So I'm going to answer for DISC. And I'm going to actually, Erin, I'm going to
Mhm.
ask you to answer the Enneagram one and what you usually say since you're the Enneagram expert. So in terms of DISC, what I usually say to people is because DISC really is a behavioral assessment that was designed for work teams, given your function and your the team you sit on. So the only time I usually tell people to retake DISC is after you've had a significant role change. So, like, let's say you went from individual contributor to leader. I would
Mhm.
say retake that 6 to 8 months after you're like in that new role because you have like brand new responsibilities and you may have adapted in a way because it's about observable behavior. Okay. You may have adapted in a way, and DISC can shift based on your role and your responsibilities. Um, 16 types usually doesn't shift that much. So I usually don't recommend necessarily retaking that. Again, maybe if you've had a very, very significant life change or role change, because 16 types, again, was designed in the field of psychology. So it's more personal. So again, significant life change or role change, but you never want to retake that in the midst of that change. It's after the change and you're now in the change. So, Erin, I'm going to defer to you
Mhm.
about Enneagram.
Yeah, I'm not a big advocate of people retaking Enneagram. It's all rooted in core motivators. There's three core motivators. So if people understand the core motivator and they get their core motivator like kind of nailed down, I don't think that there's a need to retake the assessment. Um, with the caveat of like, were they in major stress when they took the
Mhm.
assessment? Like, sometimes think that can like skew the results. I think the Cloverleaf assessment nails it probably 98% of the time. I very rarely have people who get the wrong type. So,
Right. Um, No, thank you so much for clarifying. So,
Mhm.
Brittany, no, you do not purchase any assessments. We have several subscription plans. You do not purchase any assessments, and you don't charge your client for any purchasing of assessments. You do not have to be certified to purchase, but different levels of our subscription plans include certifications. We do offer certifications in Enneagram, DISC, and 16 types. But again, I'll share a link. If anybody does want to get a demonstration and understand a little bit more about that, I am not in sales at all. I am just a practitioner, and I do trainings. So, but if you do want to learn a little bit more, I'm going to put this right now in the chat. If you do want to, if anybody does want to learn more, I'm going to put this in the chat. You can learn a little bit more about the plans and learn little bit more about it. But you pay a one-time fee, and then you can put clients on, give them unlimited access for a certain amount of time based upon the plan you purchase. So you do not charge per assessment or anything like that. It's very, very admin light. My next question is, I lost my screen here. Hold on one second. My next question is, one of the big pain points for coaches, and I'll go to you, Kurt, first, is staying top of mind after a session. Coaches and trainers and consultants is staying top of mind after a session or a training module or after an engagement ends. How have you used Cloverleaf to create ongoing value that keeps clients engaged and coming back?
Yeah, so Cloverleaf does this automatically, like all by itself. So what I love is it becomes a part of their personal and internal team processes, right? Because what we're doing is it gets integrated into everything they do. So they're using it for their difficult conversations. They're using it to strategically build their team relationships. They're using it for project planning, right? They're using it for hiring and looking for their the current team dynamics and where they're lacking and where they're strong and where they can grow. And it makes everything automatic with with your daily emails. So they never want to see it stop. So what I typically do is I'll do a SWOT at the beginning of the engagement, and then I'll do a second SWOT towards the end, 30 days before we stop our engagement, right? Because number one, when we do a Cloverleaf SWOT, I do them for 2 hours. I always consistently hear the same thing from my CEOs. We didn't have enough time. We're just scratching the surface and all the great stuff that Cloverleaf offers. So when I do that second one towards the end, it really it gives them, keeps it top of mind. It brings great value, but also I'm able to say, well, you only have it for another 30 days. And so then they're like, okay, wow. And I think the other piece that I use, the other piece that they really love is the calendar integration, right? This keeps you top of mind because one of my CEOs love that, right? Because it helps them enhance their meeting preparation. And I may expect we can go into that later on, but again, it really becomes a part of everything they do, and they just can't like live without it. Kind of like I can't with my coaching engagement. So,
Right. So I just want to clarify what you're saying, Cloverleaf SWOT. So Cloverleaf SWOT is something we created as like looking at a team dashboard and identifying some potential strengths. In a Cloverleaf SWOT, a normal, a typical SWOT analysis is looking at strengths, weaknesses, internals, and then external opportunities and threats. A Cloverleaf SWOT brings it kind of all internal. It's looking at all the assessment results and looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities for growth and threats to productivity. So you're looking at all the assessment results and looking at where there could be potential insights. So it's something that we have resources and training on, at Cloverleaf, and we have all kinds of resources within our cadre. So that's what Kurt is speaking to. So I just want to clarify that. Erin, how about you in terms of that? How are you using Cloverleaf to sort of extend your client engagements?
Yeah, I think I'm similar to Kurt. I don't necessarily do a lot of extra because it's all there for you in terms of the automated coaching tips that are going out Monday through Friday, and then there's the option for people to integrate their calendar, and I think those are just great connection points, and it's connected to you, and those things keep you top of mind. I often hear from clients around like these coaching tips were spot on as I'm connecting with them in continued connection points like coaching, one-on-one coaching things or follow-up sessions, things like that. Those coaching, automated coaching things are keeping you top of mind. So I'm not really doing much beyond that,
Right.
quite honestly.
And that's what's so important is that it kind of does it for you. And that's why, like, I
Mhm.
remember like before I discovered Cloverleaf, I was having to make up all this stuff, like to create all this content to keep
Mhm.
sessions alive, right?
Mhm.
And so you don't really have to do that. It's all really automated. Brittany
Mhm.
asked, is there an app that's mobile friendly? So while there isn't an app, the site is mobile optimized, so people can log in. So what happens is when they get the email, if they get the email on their phone and they want to go to the website, they can go to the website on their phone. It's all mobile optimized. So the all the tips that you saw me grab, those tips go to your email. And it's, let's say you wanted to then go log into the system, you could go do that, and the site is mobilely optimized.
And Stephanie, can I make one more quick
Sure, yeah.
piece on that? Because I think something Erin said was so when we during my coaching package, usually it's going to include like at least four like group coaching sessions that I'll do that are like IPEC based, right? But I always integrate Cloverleaf into every single group, session we do. It's always a part of it. And when I send their email out, a week before, telling them what we're going to be doing and what to prepare for, I always have a section that says, hey, also to prepare, jump into your Cloverleaf, right? Check out, and I always align the Cloverleaf assessment and what we're going to be using Cloverleaf for with the topic, whether it's the ideal leader or
Mhm.
how to be an inspiring leader, right? So they're always seeing it all the time whenever we have a group anyways. It's perfect. So
Yeah, no, that's great. One of the things that I do a lot, so like I do a coach skill training for leaders, and we'll do like a module on like coaching through conflict, and I'll say, use this feature, right, to
mhm.
practice this specific thing. Like a lot of times I will have them use the thinking styles, or I'll say like use the insight search, like how do I deal with conflict with this person, right? So I will
Mhm.
integrate it. Like when you have your content, like, like everybody has their specialty, right? Like you're doing this group coaching, like Erin's doing these, these team Enneagram workshops, right? So when you know your content, it's very easy. Like as soon as I saw Cloverleaf, it was very easy for me to see like, oh, where can I bring this in? So
That's right.
whatever you do, you will be able to see, oh, this is where I can add it in. This is where I can
Hmm.
incorporate it. Like
Yep.
it's, and the thing is, you don't have to do anything. You just have to tell them where to do it. You don't have to create anything. You just have to say, this is what you have to do.
Yep.
Right. And so when I'm teaching people how to coach, leaders how to use coaching skills, it's easier for me to say, okay, I'm teaching you the skill. Now you're going to get the tips about how Sue or Joe or whatever likes to be communicated with. I can't
Mhm.
teach
Hmm.
them, right? I don't know Sue or Joe. They're not in the program. I'm only working with the leader, right? So I can't teach them how Sue or Joe likes to communicate with, but Cloverleaf can, right?
Mhm.
So I'm just teaching them the skill of active listening. I'm teaching them the skill of how to ask powerful questions. Now Cloverleaf is telling them, well, here's how you might want to have a difficult conversation with Sue because of Sue's preferred communication style. I can't teach them Sue's personality, right?
Hmm.
That's not in my purview, right? So that's why it appends so beautifully to like so many things that we do, but it's that contextual piece, right? We're teaching skill, we're teaching, something that might be broader, but then this is making it so much more personal, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let me go to my last question here. So Erin, for you, so some coaches, consultants, and trainers worry that automation devalues the relationship with the practitioner. Where do you draw the line between what should be automated and what needs to stay deeply human? Are there any best practices that you've developed?
Yeah, I think what I really focus on is continuing to stay connected to the humans that I'm working with. And so while I've got, maybe lots of different teams, I might not be able to individually coach every single individual. I'm going to prioritize working with those team leaders and the key leaders that I'm working with to be able to continue the relationship and allowing them to be able to do their best work so that they can continue the relationships with their team. So I think that there is great value in the daily coaching tips that helps to get to everybody on the team. I might not be able to do the one-on-one coaching with all those people, but I can really emphasize the relationships with the key leaders. I can often do one-on-one coaching with those people. And so that's where I feel like I've really tried to keep that human aspect in the work that I'm doing, is really like developing and keeping those relationships the priority.
So like the people that have like the influence in those
Hmm.
organizations where you're able to
Yeah.
make the biggest impact.
Yep. Yep. It's, building leverage and recognizing, like, as you said at the beginning, everybody wants to do less with more. And so, while ideally, I'd love to be able to coach everybody on the team, I recognize that's not probably reality. And so, who can I work with, and how can we help to maybe build some of those things into what I am offering? So, follow up one-on-one sessions, or building a touch point in with the key leader, the team leader, just building that right into what I'm offering to them.
Excellent. That's great. How about you, Kurt? How do you sort of create that balance? Like, what are you keeping human and where do you draw the line? Is there any best practices that you
Mhm.
have?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, much like what Erin said, in my practice, I do something called, automating the insight, right? And this is where Cloverleaf is absolute magic because again, I'll ask them to identify something that's like resonating with them, right? Within their personalized daily coaching self-tip emails they get, right? And I'll ask them, look, pay attention to what's coming up for you as you read this, right? Get curious. Cleverly asked you too. Is it on target? Is it not so much? Is it nah? I learned something new, right? But yeah, get curious. Does something trigger in you when you read this tip, or is there a glimmer, right? And so, um, and I I specifically asked them to really identify, what areas of your current leadership journey are either in or out of alignment or in or out of integrity when it comes to this coaching tip. And I have them use their Cloverleaf reflections. And it's powerful. I'm glad you showed that at the very beginning of the session, Stephanie, because I'll ask them to bring that to our next one-on-one coaching session. What are you seeing? What's coming up for you? What are the things you're putting in that journal that are important to you for your development? And so that's where I see, automation and efficiency really needing that human element, not elephant, but element. And that's what Cloverleaf does so well.
Excellent. No, and I think that's great. I think that both of you really are demonstrating powerfully how you're integrating Cloverleaf into the work that you were already doing, right? It's not like you started your business and then were like, oh, how can I use Cloverleaf? You were already doing what you were doing, and then you built Cloverleaf into what you were doing, right? And so
Mhm.
and I was doing the same thing, right? I was doing what I was doing, and there was so much labor, right, involved
Mhm.
in sort of that follow up, and I was struggling to find ways to. I was talking to Darren, the CEO, the other day, and I said, I remember like having to like invent so many like discs, so much disc stuff. Like, and I remember having this
Mhm.
spreadsheet with everybody's type on it and like trying to invent all this stuff. Right?
Hmm.
And then I just remember when I first saw Cloverleaf, I was like, oh my God, like I won't have to remember everybody's thing anymore. Like,
Yeah.
and I was just, it's just, there was just so much ease in just being able to like open this screen, but not only that open the screen, but then know that there was this like pushing out of all this information to the clients that I didn't have to worry about, but then also that they could pull it towards them situationally based upon what they needed, right?
Hmm.
And that's the other thing, is that I kind of feel like knowing that every client that I deal with has the ability to pull it towards them when they have a situation that I can't be there all the time, right? I
Mhm.
can't,
Hmm.
don't get me wrong, I tell clients like, email me, whenever you want, like, I'll answer you within 24 hours, but they don't always do that, right? They're not always going to do that. Sometimes, it's easier for them to say, hey, how can I have this conversation with so and so, or how do I motivate this person on my team? They can go to Cloverleaf and get that coaching right away. And even if they know they have to wait 3 more days before they have the session with me, it's not that they couldn't email me, but they could get that information really quickly because it's data from that person that's in there, right? And that's more helpful to them, right? Than necessarily emailing me, right? It's not
Mhm.
that I won't help them. It's just like it's going to tell them specifically, hey, here's how this person might like to be communicated with. That's valuable to them. So it's just a great support to be able to have.
Hmm.
So we have a few minutes left. I just want to give the opportunity for anybody who has any questions for anybody on the panel, myself, any questions about Cloverleaf. If you want to ask Erin or Kurt any questions, please pop it in the chat. If you are interested again about learning more about Cloverleaf, I also, if you want to schedule a demonstration, I just popped the link in the chat. You can schedule a full demo and really look at all of the features and learn about all the assessments. If you do want to do that, I just popped that in the chat. Again, I am not in sales. My line is I'm not in sales. I'm just obsessed with Cloverleaf. I literally just love what I do. And I love that I get to use Cloverleaf. I'm dating myself. Like I'm not only, I don't only work here, but I'm also a customer, right? Is the hair for men. Right. But I've been using Cloverleaf with my clients again for 5 years. And so I'm just like Erin and Kurt. I use it with all my services. So, right. Yes, Ernie, my friend Ernie, the best leadership tech does not replace the human connection. It reflects it. What if AI isn't the answer, but the mirror? Ernie, so
Hmm.
wise.
Mm.
So wise. Thank you, Ashley, for being here. It's so great. I'm glad that you're enjoying Cloverleaf. That's awesome. Any other questions? Any questions that anybody has? Again, for myself, for Kurt, for Erin, anybody want to ask anything? Please feel free to pop it in the chat.
Hmm.
If it's not something we can answer, we can always get the answer for you.
Stephanie, just while we're waiting, if I
Sure.
can just jump in, just while we're waiting for a question or two, but one of the things you said about Cloverleaf, things making it easy for you. If anyone's here on this call who's like, okay, so all these assessments and I've got to understand all this, you don't need to understand these assessments like at great depth because Cloverleaf makes it easy for you. Like on those dashboards, they tell you exactly what it is, how to use it, what the insights are
Yeah,
that are
that's a great
specific
point.
to. So jump in and don't be afraid. You can do it. It's great. And clients can too. Mhm.
It's so true. I want to just show people that really quickly. I'm going to jump onto the team dashboard. So when you're on the team dashboard, actually, I'll go with Enneagram first. Like you can actually see, like, if you're like, depending on which type they are, you can see like Enneagram is broken up into triads. You can see the strengths of each triad, the blind spots. If you're not part of this triad, how to communicate. In DISC, you can see, like, they'll say, hey, if you're high in this steadiness, tells you a little bit about them. Here's what to do, what not to do. Also, if you want to learn more, also it'll tell you like, hey, here's the people that are introverted. Here's the people that are extroverted. It tells you exactly a little bit about each aspect of it, and it'll show you who's who. And then if you want to learn more about an assessment, you could just tells you a little question mark here. You could go hop and it'll tell you a little bit more, and you go right to the resources and it'll tell you a little bit more about it. So again,
Mhm.
it's so detailed. There's so much, help. We also do webinars monthly where we do all kinds of trainings that we provide on a monthly basis, right, at no cost, right, for all of our practitioners, and all of our enterprise clients as well. So we do all these webinars, right? So we did a webinar around feedback, and we provide the recording and a whole resource for people. So we do all kinds of trainings on a regular basis. Also, when you are a partner with us, we also do separate partner only trainings, and we have a whole partner onboarding process where we have courses. So we have these trainings that we do for all our customers, but we also have separate partner trainings and partner community Q&As and things like that. So we really support all of our partners in a very unique way to make sure that they get the support that they need. Let's see. So there are 3 levels. I don't want to get too much into like the weeds of the packages. Again, I would definitely discuss that with one of our account representatives. But it really depends on what services you offer and the length of your services. So I would definitely, I really can't answer that because it really does depend on what your services looks like. So you would really, there's different levels of packages. So it would really, Travis, I would definitely discuss that with one of our advisors to find out like what your services look like, how long your packages usually last, because that will determine it. And so I don't want to misguide you, but that would be the best bet. If you'd like to learn more about Cloverleaf, just schedule a call, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.